There is a story we have been telling ourselves for a very long time, and it is a beautiful story, a seductive one, the kind of story that fills cinema screens and best-selling novels and the speeches of visionary entrepreneurs who stand before crowds and speak of humanity becoming a multiplanetary, then a multistellar species. The story goes something like this. We are clever. We build better engines. We point those engines at a distant star. We go, it is a story built on optimism and ambition, and in many ways, those are the finest qualities our species possesses. But when you press that story against the cold, indifferent surface of actual physics, it does not bend gracefully. It shatters. What I want to do right now is not discourage you. I want to do something far more important. I want to replace a fantasy with a reality, and I want to argue that the reality, terrifying as it is, carries its own kind of profound and staggering beauty, because the universe does not care about our dreams of expansion. The universe operates according to laws, and those laws apply to fragile biological creatures with the same absolute authority that they apply to collapsing stars and evaporating black holes. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a single microscopic cell, something invisible to the naked eye, a fragile biological machine held together by membranes thinner than a soap bubble. Now place that cell on one side of a frozen, barren continent, roughly the size of Antarctica, but one that is also continuously bathed in high-energy radiation from all directions. The ground is cold beyond imagining. There is no atmosphere. There is no warmth. And this cell must crawl to the other side of the continent, a journey that will take thousands upon thousands of years, sealed inside a glass bubble the size of a grain of sand. That bubble must perfectly recycle every molecule of water and oxygen the cell will ever need. Every single molecule, for tens of thousands of years, without a single failure. And the entire time, invisible high-energy particles are raining down on that bubble from every direction, passing straight through the glass, straight through the cell, systematically tearing apart the molecular machinery inside it. That picture, as surreal as it sounds, is a physically accurate description of what a human being would experience attempting to cross the space between our solar system and the nearest star system. Not a poetic exaggeration. A description grounded in the actual numbers, the actual biology, the actual physics of the interstellar medium. So let us start with the numbers themselves, because the numbers alone are sufficient to produce a kind of vertigo that no science fiction film has ever honestly depicted. The nearest star to our sun is Proxima Centauri, a small red dwarf sitting at a distance of approximately 4.24 light years. A light year is the distance light travels in one full year, moving at roughly 300,000 kilometers per second. Light, the fastest thing permitted to exist in the universe under the fundamental laws of space-time, takes more than 4 years to cover that distance. Now consider the fastest spacecraft humanity has ever launched. The Voyager probes, those extraordinary machines built in the 1970s and now drifting beyond the outer reaches of our solar system, travel at roughly 17 kilometers per second. At that speed, reaching Proxima Centauri would take approximately 73,000 years. Now, you might say, well, we will build faster ships. And yes, in principle, we might. But let us be generous in the extreme. Let us imagine a civilization centuries beyond ours, possessing propulsion technology of breathtaking sophistication, capable of accelerating a ship to 10% of the speed of light. This is not a small engineering challenge. It is an almost incomprehensibly large one, requiring energy outputs that dwarf anything our civilization currently produces or can plausibly project. But grant it, at 10% of the speed of light, the journey to Proxima Centauri takes roughly 42 years. That is one lifetime, one complete human lifetime, spent inside a sealed artificial environment with no possibility of turning back, no possibility of resupply, and no possibility of rescue. But Proxima Centauri is the nearest star. It is the closest lighthouse in an ocean of incomprehensible scale. The Milky Way galaxy is roughly 100,000 light-years in diameter. The stars that we might consider genuinely interesting from an astrobiological perspective, the ones orbiting in conditions that might support something resembling a biosphere, are not all conveniently clustered around our cosmic doorstep. And if you want to visit another galaxy, Andromeda sits approximately 2.5 million light years away. At 10% of the speed of light, you are looking at 25 million years of travel time. Generations do not simply die on that ship. Entire species could rise and fall on Earth in the time it would take that vessel to arrive. The metric of space-time is not merely inconvenient. It is a physical barrier of a magnitude that our intuitions, shaped by the scales of human life and human history, are genuinely incapable of processing without deliberate effort. And time dilation, the beautiful and eerie consequence of special relativity, does offer something. At a significant fraction of the speed of light, the clock aboard the ship ticks more slowly relative to clocks on Earth. A journey that takes thousands of years from the perspective of Earth might compress to something shorter for the crew. But this is not a loophole. This is a different kind of horror. The travelers arrive having aged relatively little, but they return to a civilization that may no longer exist, to a planet altered beyond recognition, to a humanity that has moved so far forward that the travelers are effectively temporal castaways, marooned in a future where their entire world has dissolved behind them. The mathematics of space-time are generous with time dilation and utterly ruthless with everything else. Now let us talk about what the interstellar medium actually is, because the cultural image of space as a vast, peaceful emptiness is one of the most dangerously wrong intuitions in popular thinking. Space is not empty. The region between stars is threaded with galactic cosmic rays, high-energy particles accelerated to extraordinary speeds by supernova explosions, neutron stars, and the violent magnetic environments around black holes. These particles include protons, helium nuclei, and heavier ions stripped of their electrons, traveling at velocities that represent a substantial fraction of the speed of light. And they are everywhere. On Earth, we do not feel them because we are wrapped in a planetary shield of extraordinary effectiveness. The magnetosphere deflects a vast portion of this radiation. The atmosphere, a column of air equivalent in shielding mass to roughly 10 meters of water, absorbs much of what gets through. Our biology evolved under this protection. We are, in the most literal physical sense, creatures built for Earth and built by Earth. Now remove those shields. Place a human body, or even a well-shielded spacecraft containing a human body, in the interstellar medium for decades or centuries. What happens is not subtle. Galactic cosmic rays do not interact with matter the way softer radiation does. They are not stopped by conventional shielding materials with any reasonable mass budget. A particle moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light, carrying the kinetic energy of a fast-moving baseball concentrated in a single atomic nucleus, passes through centimeters of aluminum or lead with only marginal energy loss. It enters the hull of your spacecraft. It enters the body of a crew member. And as it passes through biological tissue, it ionizes everything in its path, breaking chemical bonds, snapping strands of DNA, destroying cellular machinery with a precision and thoroughness that no medical intervention can repair in real time. The central nervous system is particularly vulnerable. Neurons do not regenerate in the way that other tissues do. High-energy ion damage to neural tissue accumulates over time, producing cognitive decline, behavioral changes, and eventually catastrophic neurological failure. Studies of astronauts aboard the International Space Station, which sits inside the partial protection of Earth's magnetic field, already show measurable changes in brain structure and cognitive function. Now, extend that exposure not for 6 months or a year, but for decades or centuries in the open interstellar medium, where the radiation environment is vastly more severe and there is no magnetic cocoon to offer even partial shelter. The biological calculus does not produce survival. It produces a systematic dismantling of the very neural architecture that makes a human being a human being. There is no material we currently know of, and no material whose existence is permitted by the known laws of physics that can be deployed at spacecraft mass budgets to stop these particles without creating a vessel so massive that launching it becomes thermodynamically absurd. The radiation environment of interstellar space is not a problem awaiting a clever engineering solution. It is a fundamental physical consequence of the violent processes that power the galaxy. And then there is entropy. The second law of thermodynamics is one of the most profound and most absolute statements in all of physics. In any closed system, disorder increases over time. This is not a tendency or a statistical preference. It is a direction embedded in the structure of time itself. A spacecraft on an interstellar journey is, by physical necessity, a closed system. It cannot resupply from outside. Every molecule of water must be recaptured, filtered, and recycled. Every calorie of heat generated by biological metabolism and mechanical operation must be managed within the system. Every mechanical component that wears, every seal that degrades, every chemical reaction that produces waste products, all of it must be managed indefinitely, perfectly, without cumulative failure, for not decades but centuries. Consider for a moment what it means for a mechanical or biological system to operate without catastrophic failure for 500 years. The oldest continuously operating mechanical systems on Earth, cathedral clocks and ancient irrigation channels, survive only because they are maintained by continuous human attention and periodic replacement of components. There is no such resupply for an interstellar ship. The components that fail cannot be replaced from outside. The biological systems that degrade cannot be augmented from outside. And in a closed thermodynamic system, degradation is not a possibility. It is a certainty. The second law does not negotiate. It does not grant exemptions for ships with sufficiently advanced technology. It describes the direction in which every closed system in the universe moves over time, and that direction is toward disorder, toward failure, toward the collapse of precisely maintained complexity into its more probable, more disordered states. The engineering challenge of maintaining a closed biological life support system across centuries is not a challenge of cleverness or resources. It is a challenge that runs directly against a fundamental law of nature. And nature wins. Nature always wins. What I find myself returning to after working through these physical realities is not despair. It is something closer to a kind of staggered gratitude. We live on a world that is a biological spacecraft of staggering sophistication, one that has been running its closed systems for approximately 4 billion years without catastrophic failure. Earth maintains its atmosphere through an intricate web of geological, chemical, and biological cycles that buffer against disruption in ways our engineering cannot replicate. It generates a magnetic field that deflects the radiation that would otherwise sterilize its surface. It recycles water, carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus through systems of breathtaking elegance and resilience. It does not merely support life. It is, in the most physically rigorous sense, a life support system of planetary scale, one whose operating principles we are only beginning to understand. We did not build this system, we inherited it. And we walk across its surface every day without registering what it is, without feeling the magnetosphere that silently turns aside the galactic particle storm pouring down on us from all directions, without sensing the atmospheric column above us that stands between our biology and the void. The laws of physics do not forbid wonder. They do not forbid ambition. But they are absolute about what is and is not physically achievable within the constraints of a finite universe operating according to precise mathematical laws. The interstellar distances are not inconveniences awaiting better propulsion. The radiation environment is not a problem awaiting better shielding. The thermodynamic demands of a closed system over deep time